Of course, on a morning like this morning, it's a Friday morning, the sun is coming through my window from my right and raking across the iron. And for me, in this light, this is where metal really reveals everything to me. And my eyes are fresh this morning, and I can just gently work over the ground. This is, for me, one of the most precious moments in working metal. I don't want to say my favorite, but when I'm in the right mental space, my heart rate is just right. I've had a good cup of tea. My body doesn't hurt. My hands aren't sore. I can get lost in this, lovingly working away. I do wonder sometimes if these subtle grounds, which I adore, actually, this is where I lose myself. These subtle grounds is, for me, the most important thing of all. Everything else is just decoration. This is where everything matters for me. Which is a fellow called Willard, who does micro carvings, little people on the grain of our ice, or Trafalgar, Nelson's column and the eye of a needle, that kind of thing. I get how they get lost in that. I used to think it was a little bunkum, the talk about working between your heartbeats, but in fact, I'm not quite working between my heartbeats, but I can feel my body. I can feel every part of my body as I'm doing this. And I can feel every little bit of metal. Something that's happened of late. After my mother died in April, it's been quite traumatic, and I find myself quite open to things, very raw, in fact. And when I come here and I work on the metal, I feel as though I can feel every little bit moving. And when I'm chiseling, I can feel every tiny particle of metal under my chisel paring away. And similarly, when I'm filing, I can feel every tiny tooth on the file almost, because I have that awareness. It makes going to the supermarket quite traumatic. You just sort of switch off a little bit, become hyper aware of everything. And so, I suppose one of the things that I've thought about quite a lot, I've been reluctant to talk about it previously because you talk about some things, and I think somebody said the problem with communication is sometimes mistakenly under the impression that it's taken place. But the idea of craft as a way, Aikido, the way of Aiki, Chado, the way of tea, Kado, the way of the flower. What does it mean, this way thing, this pseudo-spiritual path? In the martial arts, of course, it's bandied around quite a lot. And I think that's one of the reasons I avoid any references, because this is probably going to wind some people up, but for me, I had a fairly long involvement in the martial arts before my illness, but paid to that. I think there's a lot of superficial lip service. And again, I suppose that's the case in most religious practice. A lot of it is about appearances. What does it mean to pursue a craft as a way, as a spiritual way? Well, one of the things, of course, would be that you're not doing it motivated for external praise, recognition, money. We all have to make a living, but there's a point at which the work itself becomes more important at the invoice, more important that you give everything. I think that's what this has become for me. In some ways it's a bit of a handicap, because it's quite hard to reconcile the realities of earning a living, paying the rent, with this kind of work. I mean, you'd think at this point it wouldn't be. I've been at this 38 years. I've been a craftsman, professional craftsman. But we live in difficult times. There are very few Medici princes prepared to support these crafts, especially at this level. Not being Japanese hasn't helped. There's an obvious suspicion. I guess if I was Japanese, I'd get a lot more support. But nevertheless, this is my path, and my following the iron brush thing alludes very much to that Zuitepitz. Zuitepitz means I'm following the chisel. I don't have a choice. And the chisel demands attention and devotion and integrity. You can't fake it. You can't just knock it out. Well, you can, but then you can't really look in the mirror. You know what you've done. I'm not saying everybody has to pursue it like that. This is just how I do it. And for me, these kind of finishes that speak of my skin, my life, my experience, the pattern on me, the pattern on my character. And this is it. This is it here. That's why it matters, really. All work is autobiographical. Autobiographical, yeah. All work is autobiographical. And you find your way into your work, and if you stop and breathe and feel, really feel, just stop, empty your mind, just feel and observe in this clear morning light, which is so exquisite and gentle. It's not judgmental, it's just there, you can see it. It takes some doing to detach from the concerns that I've got to get some work finished, I've got to earn some money to pay the rent, there are bills to pay, all that cacophony of daily concern and panic just wraps around your head and squeezes tight. You just have to let it go and go, screw it. I'm doing more important work now. So that's how I approach this. I'm not able to do it all the time, of course. But when I do, I feel very, very privileged. When I think of Natsuo, that refined, elegant gentleman, and his exquisite finishes, and Mitsuoki Otsuki, I'd love to have had a drink with him. the way he used the chisel and how they cared. And yet there were works that they'd left behind where I can see clearly they had to wriggle through that one. They couldn't go back over like I'm doing now and gently birth the skin of the piece. They had to just get a texture on and get it out the shop. And maybe they knew the client wouldn't really care. Pragmatic workmanship is everywhere. But at the start of the 21st century, we're not just making objects anymore. Machines do that. People print stuff, design it on a computer. So what's left? This is what's left, for me anyway. There's no other way this can be done. Just me, my little punch, the sunlight, tapping away, working away on this old piece of iron that's been repurposed, bringing it back to life. Or rather, leaving a little bit of my life on it. When I'm gone, maybe in 100 years' time, somebody will look at it and wonder how the skin came about. Because I look at Natsuo's work like that. That famous piece of the iris that's in the MFA, the Boston Museum of Fine Art. One of the greatest masterpieces in metal ever made. It's tiny. And I look at that texture. The iris is wonderful, of course, but I look at that ground and I imagine Natsuo working over it and try to imagine how he arrived at that point where he worked metal like that. It's so distinctly his touch, his feeling. And I've been looking for that ever since I first saw his work over 25, nearly 30 years ago. And I think I understand what he was looking for. I think I understand what he was expressing. And on really, really good days, I think I can say something similar.